teasing slap on the arm. How dare you get all married without me getting to embarrass you first? 𝐸𝐭's brows knitted together as he gently took Wine's arm, inspecting the spot where 𝐘𝐨 had slapped her, even though it was entirely harmless. Hey, careful with her. 𝐘𝐨 raised her brow, hands on her hips. Oh, protect him much, Mr. Kim. She teased, giving him a knowing smirk. Then just narrowed his eyes in good humor. I have to be. She's precious, he replied, leaning closer to Wine and wrapping an arm around her shoulders as if shielding her from any potential harm. 𝐘𝐨 rolled her eyes at him but smiled. Wine smiled, shaking her head at them when 𝐸𝐭's business partner approached them. 𝐸𝐭 got immersed in a conversation with him when 𝐘𝐨's little boy toddled up shyly and threw himself in Wine's arms. Wine giggled, holding him as he shyly buried his face into Wine's shoulder and planted a sweet kiss on her cheek, which made her coo with delight. Oh baby, you're so cute. She pinched his cheek softly. Thank you, baby, Nick said in his cute voice. Wine loved kissing his cheeks. Look at this, even my son has the courage to flirt with Wine, 𝐘𝐨 said with a smug grin, crossing her arms. She deliberately raised her voice to grab 𝐸𝐭's attention, then turned around and moved close to them. You're so beautiful, baby. He kissed her cheek again, only for 𝐸𝐭 to gasp with widened eyes. He instantly lifted Nick off Wine with a playful, protective glint in his eyes. Excuse me, young man, my innocent wife is being tortured here by you two, he joked, pretending to wipe off the kiss from Wine's cheek by kissing her cheek. Everyone around them laughed as 𝐸𝐭 held the child in his arms, examining him with exaggerated suspicion. The little boy just blinked at him, clearly unfazed, while Wine shook her head, laughing. 𝐸𝐭, come on, he's only a child, you can't be jealous of him, Wine said, giving him a gentle nudge. They looked at her, feigning seriousness. He's not just a child, Wine. He is 2-year-old grown man, practically a heavyweight, he teased, barely holding in his laugh. 𝐘𝐨 snorted, stepping closer to take her son back. Excuse me, my child is perfectly behaved and weighs just the right amount. Thank you very much. 𝐘𝐨's husband walked up, chuckling as he wrapped an arm around his wife, trying to play peacemaker. All right, let's call it a truce here. No need to start a family feud. Wine laughed, rolling her eyes as she looked at 𝐸𝐭 with a smile that softened his playful attitude instantly. He leaned down, planting a gentle kiss on her cheek as she beamed up at him. See, this is how it's done. No competition, no games, just true love, he said to 𝐘𝐨 with a smirk. The group dissolved into laughter again. Time skip. After the reception was over, they finally arrived home and stepped into their home after a long, drawn-out evening. He let out a low growl, running a hand through his hair in frustration. I swear, if 𝐘𝐨 hadn't kept you locked up like that, we would have been home hours ago, he muttered, glancing at Wine with a soft gaze. Wine laughed softly, shaking her head. You know how she is. She practically barricaded me in there. Then sighed dramatically. Only I know the agony of those few minutes away from you, he teased, tugging her close for a quick kiss on her forehead. Wine smiled, ruffling his hair. You must be tired. Let me help you with this makeup and jewelry. Before she could protest, he lifted her and sat her in front of the dressing table gently. It's no big deal, 𝐸𝐭, I can do it. He crouched down and took off her heels. I know, but I like to do it for you, she sighed, shaking her head and staring at him as he took off her necklace and earrings. How do you remove this makeup? He asked, looking around for something. I'll do it myself. Why don't you get changed until then? He shook his head. I want to do it. 𝐸𝐭, get changed, see your sleepy eyes. She cupped his face and said softly. 𝐸𝐭 opened his mouth to speak, but her glare stopped him. Okay, fine, he said, holding her hands and kissing them before walking to the washroom. They changed into their more comfortable clothes, exhaustion tugging at their movements before they finally collapsed onto the bed. 𝐸𝐭 reached out, pulling her into his arms as they lay side by side, settling into the warmth of each other. It's nearly dawn, he murmured, his fingers brushing gently along her back. Yeah, she said, closing her eyes as she relaxed into him. She snuggled closer, but then She seemed suddenly energized despite the late hour. She tilted her head to look up at him, her eyes shining even in the dim light of their bedroom. Did you see Kara's face when we finally managed to leave? She looked so betrayed, like I was abandoning her or something. And when her little one started calling me baby non-stop. My God, Thiam, I almost melted. He's so adorable. She spoke as a grin broke across her lips, then chuckled watching her with warmth. That mother and son are really something, he murmured as she continued, his hand gently tracing along her arm as she went on. And don't even get me started on her husband. Did you see how he was desperately trying to keep her from holding us hostage? It's like he had this entire plan of escape mapped out. He would drop hints and she would ignore every single one. Poor guy, I think he was more tired than we are. One shook her head, letting out a small laugh. He hummed a response, staring at her glowing face constantly. But she paused, seemingly lost in the memory before her eyes sparkled with excitement again. And when I told Kyra about the surprise trip we have planned, her reaction, Thiam, I thought she was going to fall over. She practically demanded to come along, like a surprise trip was the ultimate betrayal. Wine continued, her hand now drawing soft patterns on his arm as her voice lowered slightly, her tone becoming more tender. But you know, it felt nice. Like finally having that family I always wished for. Just laughing and talking for hours with people who actually care. I never thought. Her words trailed off a bit as she seemed to get lost in the thought, her gaze drifting away before she brought herself back, looking up at Thiam, who was still smiling at her, listening attentively as if nothing was more important than that. I almost forgot. She burst out, shifting excitedly in his arms. Remember when Kyra's little boy grabbed onto my dress and wouldn't let go? You should have seen your face. You looked so betrayed, like I had been stolen by a toddler. And then you spent the entire time giving him that look like, get your own wife, kid. She laughed, her laughter bubbling out and softening into a smile as she looked at him. Thiam chuckled at her words, not bothering to deny his overprotective instincts. She took a small pause to catch her breath, her gaze turning soft. I think that's what I love most about you, Thiam. How you are always there, always so completely there. Thiam's smile deepened as he put her further closer, his fingers gently tugging a strand of hair behind her ear, listening to her every word with a quiet, unbroken focus. Her voice grew softer and softer until finally she yawned, her words drifting into the quiet of the room. And I really think that we should do this forever. Her words faded as her eyes finally fluttered shut, and she fell asleep in his arms, leaving Thiam to watch her peacefully, warmth radiating through him as he pressed a soft kiss on her forehead. Good night, love, he whispered, closing his eyes. Time skipped. The maid told Wine that her family was there. Wine made her way to the living room, her mind racing. She wasn't expecting anyone, so why would her family suddenly show up? As she stepped inside, her gaze fell upon her father, her stepmother, and her half-sister Grace seated on the plush sofas. Her stepmother was the first one to notice her arrival. So this is what you have been up to, becoming a rich man's mistress and throwing your family away, sending us bankrupt. I should have known that's all you were capable of. She sneered, her voice dripping with disdain. Wine's eyes widened in disbelief, her mind was still reeling when Grace chimed in, her voice equally venomous. You know, he mentioned you were just playing around as his mistress. I thought maybe she was exaggerating, but look at you now, living in luxury while pretending to be so innocent. I clenched her fists, hurt and anger flashing across her face. Her father looked at her with disappointment, shaking his head. I thought I raised you better than this, Wine. To think that you would stoop so low, disgracing our family's name. Wine's heart ached at his words, each one feeling like a slap. She felt the sting of betrayal. Shut up, get out of my house. You have no right to come here and throw baseless accusations at me. You don't know a thing about my life, so leave. But her stepmother scoffed and took a step closer. Oh, we are not going anywhere. It's high time you hear the truth about what a disgrace you have become. Grace sneaked throwing a smug look at her mother. You're not even denying it, are you? Typical. Without another thought, Mark's hand flew, letting a hard slap across Grace's face. Shocked gasps echoed in the room. You slapped her stepmother with just as much force. That's enough, you have done nothing but look down on me, judged me without ever knowing the truth, and now you show up here humiliating me in my own house. I won't tolerate it. And you, she turned to her father. If seeing them get hurt stings you, then maybe you understand a fraction of how I feel, because all I have ever felt from you is pain. Her father's face paled, but he said nothing, unable to meet her gaze. Leave before I call the guards and throw you out. They slowly walked out, throwing bitter glances over their shoulders. It had been hours, but the interaction with them kept playing in her mind. When she felt the bed sinking beside her and Thames' muscular arms wrapped around her and pulling her close, he buried his face in her neck, breathing in her familiar, comforting scent. She stirred slightly, her voice soft as she murmured, "You're back." "Yes, I'm back," he replied, his voice low and tender. "Why are you in bed so early? What happened?" Mine ignored his question. "Weren't you supposed to be with your friends tonight?" 𝐊𝐸𝐴𝐺𝐸 tightening his hold around her and looking at her. "I paid for the treat and came back home because I missed my wife." A small smile crept onto her lips and Thames' heart warmed seeing it, but he wasn't fooled. He gently lifted her chin so their eyes met. "Don't try to distract me. Tell me what's bothering you." Reluctantly she sighed and spoke, her voice barely above whisper. "My father, his wife and daughter came today and then..." His eyes darkened and she said him everything. "Why did the security let them in?" he asked with rage. "They told the security they were my family. It's not his fault. He was just doing his job," she explained. They hummed, his thumb stroking soothing circles against her neck. "Don't worry, I'll make sure they're not allowed back here again," he murmured. Mine just nodded, and a moment of silence passed between them as she took comfort in his presence. But then Thames suddenly shifted, rolling her onto her back as he hovered over her with a mischievous glint in his eye. "What?" she asked, a bit startled, but her lips twitched with the beginnings of a smile. "I just can't have my beautiful wife looking so down. I'll have to do something about that," he said, his hands slipping down to her sides. Mine giggled as he tickled her. "Then stop it." He leaned down, pressing a playful kisses on her cheek, then on the tip of her nose. Mine squirmed under his touch as he peppered her face with kisses, all while making exaggerated noises of affection. She laughed, trying to turn her face away, but he only held her tighter, his eyes gleaming. "I have a duty to make you laugh, and I take that duty very seriously." She finally broke into a general laugh, the weight of the day beginning to lift. He smiled satisfied and brushed a strand of hair from her face, his gaze softening. "Much better. I love that smile," he whispered, his thumb gently grazing her cheek. She looked up at him, her heart fluttering, and wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him into a tender kiss. His lips moved softly against hers. As they finally pulled apart, Thames gazed at her, brushing his fingers through her hair as he murmured, "Look at how much you have changed me. I had barely smiled all my life, and here I'm smiling like a fool every moment." He pecked her lips. "No one will ever hurt you again, I promise," he murmured, trailing kisses from her jaw to neck. Next day, Mine was reading a book when Thames called her into the living room. As she entered, her eyes widened to see her father, stepmother, and Grace standing there looking displeased. She glanced nervously at Thames. Grace didn't waste a second. "Mr. Kim, don't be fooled by her innocent act. She's just trying to get between you and Hera," she spat, glaring at Mine. A dark cloud crossed Thames' face as he clenched his fists. A flicker of fury in his eyes, he gave a subtle motion to the guard standing behind her family, and the guard immediately stepped forward, delivering a sharp blow to Grace, who stumbled back in shock. Thames' voice was a low, dangerous murmur as he said, So here is part of this too. I'll handle her myself. He wrapped his arm protectively around One's shoulder, pulling her close. His voice turned icy as he addressed her family. Anyone who tries to hurt my wife will face the worst consequence. I won't tolerate another word from any of you. One gently tugged on his arm, her eyes pleading. She could see the anger simmering in his gaze, but her silent request softened him slightly. Taking a steady breath, Tim glanced at his guards and nodded. Take them away, make sure they understand the price of disrespecting my wife. He ordered, and the guards seized her family, dragging them out as they protested. Their voices fading into silence. As soon as they were gone, Tim turned back to her, his expression softening as he took her hands, pulling her close. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I leaned into his embrace. She barely had time to answer before Tim's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and sighed, kissing her forehead before answering the call. I'll be back soon, he said, his voice gentle though his gaze was intense. I nodded, giving him a small smile before she made her way back to the bedroom. When Tim returned to the bedroom, he spotted Ryan on a call with Kyra and he instantly made himself comfortable. Lying down with his head in her lap, he began to play with her hands, tracing gentle patterns over her fingers and intertwining them with his own, enjoying her warmth. Ryan gave him a playful look but continued her conversation, though it was clear that Tim was only growing more impatient by the second. As the call stretched on, Tim took matters into his own hands, leaning up, a presence of lingering kisses along her neck, jawline and shoulder, each touch making her blush. Ryan tried to keep her composure, shooting him a glare as she mounted for him to sit still, but he simply grinned and continued, his lips grazing her skin. Finally, unable to resist, Tim reached out and snatched the phone from her hand, bringing it to his ear. He smiled and said, "Loudspeaker, you are interrupting a very important moment." With that, he ended the call, switching off the phone and tossing it aside with a mischievous grin. Ryan gave him a scowl. "Tim," she chatted, though her cheeks were still flushed from his kisses. He looked at her with exaggerated innocence, mumbling a playful sorry before pulling her into a kiss. Ryan broke apart. "Wait, aren't you supposed to be working today? It's been 2 months since you have been on leave. Maybe it's time to get back to the company," she said, raising an eyebrow. Tim groaned dramatically, resting his head back on her lap. "But I'd rather be here with my beautiful wife," he whined, reaching up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. Ryan rolled her eyes affectionately. "I'm always with you, Tim, but if you keep this up, I'll go bankrupt. Besides, I was thinking of finding a job myself," she said, making him narrow his eyes playfully. Tim sat up instantly, his eyes lighting up. "You want a job? Perfect," he said, as if he had just thought of the best idea. "Why don't you work with me? That way I'll get to see you all the time. You'll be right in front of me and I won't have to miss you even for a second." I laughed at his enthusiasm, shaking her head. "You'd really hire me just to keep me close?" "Absolutely, I'll hire you in a heartbeat," he said with a smirk and pulled her closer, resting his forehead against hers, his eyes warm. "Besides, who better to trust with my empire than the person I trust most?" She softened, leaning into him, her hand gently cupping his cheek. "All right, I'll consider it," she said, her smile breaking through. Tim grinned, wasting no time before capturing her lips in a deep, loving kiss, his arms winding around her as if he never intended to let go. "You're not getting away from me, that is silly," he murmured between kisses, making her laugh against his lips. Few weeks later. It's been a few weeks since Ryan has been working with him. Now the meeting dragged on, but Tim couldn't shake the feeling of Ryan's gaze on him. She was seated across the table, her eyes sparkling, with a soft smile lingering on her lips. It was unlike her to be so openly captivated during work hours, and he found himself stealing glances at her. When the meeting finally wrapped up and the room cleared out, he caught her arm gently, pulling her over to him. As soon as she was within reach, he tucked her onto his lap, wrapping his arms around her waist. "All right, you have been staring at me all day. What's going on? You're glowing white. There's something different about you today," he murmured, his fingers brushing a stretched strand of hair from her face. Wine giggled, her eyes brimming with excitement, and leaned in to press a soft kiss to his lips. I do have something to tell you. She whispered. 𝐻𝐫𝐤𝐧𝐠 rose in curiosity. What is it? Her smile widened as she looked into his eyes, and then almost shyly she said, I'm pregnant. For a moment he was speechless. He blinked several times, processing her words. His gaze fixed on her. Silence stretched between them, and a hint of worry flickered in her eyes. She hesitated, biting her lip. 𝐻𝐫𝐤𝐧𝐠, are you not happy? Do you not want kids? In response, he cupped her face, bringing her close and kissing her deeply. I'm happy, Wine. I'm a little scared. What if I'm not a good father? He finally murmured against her lips. Wine softened her arms, winding around his neck as she rested her forehead against his. You'll be an amazing father, 𝐻𝐫𝐤𝐧𝐠. You have so much love in you. Our child is going to be lucky to have you. He smiled at her reassurance. Thank you for giving me this, for giving us this. She smiled and pulled away. All right, Mr. Kim, back to the work. Dangling mischievously as he tightened his hold around Wine, his fingers gently tickling her sides. Well, Mrs. Kim, looks like I'll have both you and a mini you to spoil. Not sure I'll ever get any work done now. Wine laughed, sweating at his hands. Mr. Kim, it's work hours. Get back to work before anyone catches us. She wiggled out of his grasp, just standing out of his reach, trying to look stern but feeling under his amused gaze. 𝐻𝐫𝐤𝐧𝐠 chuckled, raising his hands in mock surrender. All right, but you should know, this is the best meeting I have had all day. He said, still grinning. Wine rolled her eyes, her cheeks still flushed but her heart warm. Back to work, Mr. Kim, she said, stifling her own laughter as she turned to leave. He watched her go, his smile softening, already counting down the minutes until he could pull her close again. Time skipped. Wine sat beside 𝐻𝐫𝐤𝐧𝐠 on the couch, watching him nervously eye that tiny newborn son. His gaze softened, yet there was a hint of hesitation, like he was handling the most fragile piece of glass. 𝐻𝐫𝐤𝐧𝐠, you haven't really held him since we got back from the hospital. Don't you want to try? She nudged him gently, with 𝐻𝐫𝐤𝐧𝐠 sheepishly rubbing the back of his neck. It's not that I don't want to. He's just so tiny. What if he sleeps or something? I don't trust myself with him yet. I couldn't help but laugh softly, reassuring him. He won't sleep, I promise. I'll help you. She said, carefully lifting their son and guiding him into 𝐻𝐫𝐤𝐧𝐠's arms, adjusting his grip until their baby was snug and secure. 𝐻𝐫𝐤𝐧𝐠's face softened with awe as he stared down at the little boy, who was calmly sucking his thumb and making small noises. Just as 𝐻𝐫𝐤𝐧𝐠's wonder settled, the baby let out a wail, startling him. He frowned, handing him back to Wine, and as if on the cue, the baby immediately quieted down, looking content in his mother's arms. 𝐻𝐫𝐤𝐧𝐠 folded his arms, giving his son a playful scowl. This boy is already trying to steal my wife. He knows exactly what he's doing. Wine laughed, gently rocking the baby. He's just a few days old, 𝐻𝐫𝐤𝐧𝐠. I doubt he has the concept of stealing figured out yet. She teased a twinkle in her eyes, but 𝐻𝐫𝐤𝐧𝐠 wasn't having it. He continued to give the baby an exaggerated, suspicious look, clearly not buying it. Sure, look at him pretending to be all innocent. I see right through his little act. Wine's laughter grew again in the room until their son finally drifted to sleep in her arms. With a gentle smile, 𝐻𝐫𝐤𝐧𝐠 wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. He may have you wrapped around his tiny finger, but you're still mine. He murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple, Wine leaned into him, smiling as she looked down at their sleeping son. Well, he's part of you too, you know. 𝐻𝐫𝐤𝐧𝐠 nodded, resting his chin on her shoulder. Then I guess I can share you with him, just a little. He said, his voice softening with love as he watched his family, his heart full in a way he had never felt before.